Lady Nagant. Before the name Lady Nagant sent chills through the entire hero community, she was once a model pro-hero who worked directly for the Public Safety Commission. However, behind the title of Hero Kaina Tsutsumi was in reality nothing more than a tool manipulated from the shadows. She was ordered to carry out secret assassination missions, eliminating individuals deemed threats to the system. Over time, the boundary between justice and crime within her completely collapsed. After years of living as an assassin wearing a hero's mask, Kaina lost all faith in the hero society she had once served. In the end, she chose to rebel against the very organization that created her, and thus Lady Nagant was born. Her quirk rifle is one of the most terrifying sniping abilities ever seen. Lady Nagant can transform her right arm into a living rifle. Beyond that, the bullets she fires are made from her own hair. By shaping individual strands, she can create various types of special ammunition, ranging from explosive rounds, trajectory-bending bullets, to bullets capable of transmitting recorded voice messages. Lady Nagant's combat ability becomes even more dangerous when considering her firing range, which extends to approximately 3 kilometers. And, as if that were not enough, she was also granted the quirk Airwalk by All for One, allowing her to stand and move freely in midair. This combination turns Lady Nagant into a complete hunter, capable of constantly repositioning herself in the sky while attacking with near absolute precision. Even Snipe, UA's finest marksman, cannot compare to her. However, All for One never truly trusted Lady Nagant. He secretly implanted a self-detonation quirk into her body as a safeguard in case she betrayed him. When Lady Nagant began to deviate from his plans, that bomb was remotely activated. Despite suffering severe burns to her body, Lady Nagant survived. This not only demonstrates her extraordinary endurance, but also reflects the unyielding will of someone who never truly abandoned justice. Later, through the persuasion of Deku and Hawks, Lady Nagant chose to stand with the heroes during the final battle. USJ Nomu. The USJ Nomu was the first living weapon unleashed by the League of Villains against the Hero Society as a whole. This entity was not created to think or to choose, but to exist for a single purpose: to counter and defeat All Might. From the very moment it appeared, Nomu's physical strength far exceeded any conventional standard. It effortlessly overwhelmed Eraserhead, and even managed to inflict severe injuries on All Might, despite the fact that the symbol of peace was already past his prime at the time. Every punch thrown by Nomu carried tremendous shockwaves, powerful enough to shake the entire battlefield and drag everyone nearby, from Class 1A students to fellow villains into the after effects. What made Nomu truly terrifying was that it showed almost no sign of weakening despite being struck repeatedly. Its artificial body was engineered to absorb impact, turning what should have been fatal blows into something meaningless. Beyond sheer power, Nomu also possessed extraordinary speed. It was fast enough to intercept Izuku's attacks and keep up with All Might in close combat. Every charge carried devastating force, making it impossible for opponents to predict the direction of its next assault. In terms of abilities, Nomu was equipped with quirks that nearly defied all heroes. Shock absorption allowed it to absorb most of the impact from attacks, greatly reducing the effectiveness of even the strongest punches. Alongside this was super regeneration, which enabled its body to rapidly recover from damage. This combination made Nomu appear almost immortal on the battlefield. However, no matter how perfectly designed it was, Nomu was not invincible. Shock absorption has its limits, and when overwhelmed by strategy and power that exceeded its tolerance threshold, that defensive system ultimately collapsed. That is why All Might, despite being severely weakened, was still able to finish Nomu after a prolonged and brutal battle. Hood, also known as the first high-end Nomu, represents the most complete evolutionary step in Dr. Kyudai Garaki's experiments. Unlike earlier Nomu that merely followed orders and acted on instinct, Hood possesses intelligence, the ability to communicate, and clear tactical thinking. He is no longer a mindless monster, but a living weapon created specifically to hunt top-tier heroes. From the moment he appeared, Hood wasted no time on secondary targets. He directly chose Endeavor, the #1 hero, and Hawks, the #2 hero, as his prey. Within just the opening moments of the battle, Hood proved why he was classified as a high-end. He withstood Endeavor's flames, evaded attacks at extremely close range, and traded blows on equal footing with the strongest hero of that time. Hood's power comes from a deranged combination of multiple quirks. With muscle augmentation, he expands his muscle fibers beyond biological limits, turning his muscles into destructive, tentacle-like masses capable of tearing apart entire structures. Power amplifies his raw striking force, while transforming arms allows him to continuously alter the shape of his arms to attack from unpredictable angles. Hood also possesses shoulder jets, jet engines mounted on his shoulders that allow him to fly at extremely high speeds, enabling him to maneuver through the air while launching constant attacks. Combined with super regeneration, any severe damage he takes is rapidly healed. He even has storage, the ability to store other Nomu within his body, turning Hood into a true mobile biological technological weapons arsenal. What makes Hood truly terrifying is not just his strength, but his combat intelligence. He constantly shifts tactics, flying with jet propulsion, attacking from multiple directions, and mocking Endeavor for his slowness. Hood's speed was evaluated as being on par with Hawks, who was considered the fastest hero in the association at the time. Even after being burned, torn apart, and losing half of his body, Hood continued fighting as if he felt no pain at all. The peak of his madness came when he severed his own head after being hit by Prominence Burn, triggering regeneration to create a new body, an act that demonstrated a level of unpredictability and brutality far beyond any Nomu before him. In the end, Hood was only defeated when Endeavor unleashed Plus Ultra Prominence Burn, pouring all of his power and will into the finishing blow. Even that victory pushed the #1 hero to the very brink of death. Re-Destro. Re-Destro is the leader of the Meta Liberation Army and the direct descendant of Destro, a man who believed that Quirks should be completely liberated and free from the constraints of law and hero society. Unlike villains who rely solely on ideals, Re-Destro turns emotion itself into a weapon. His Quirk stress allows him to accumulate all forms of mental pressure, such as fear, anger, and extreme tension, and convert them into pure physical power. The more he is pushed, the more dangerous he becomes. As his stress level rises, his body swells, his muscles expand, and every strike carries destructive force, powerful enough to level entire buildings. What makes Re-Destro truly unique is that he is not only a revolutionary leader, but also the chairman of the Detonarat Corporation, one of the largest companies in Japan. When activating his power at high output from around 80% to nearly 100%, Re-Destro transforms into a massive black energy. The pressure waves he releases are strong enough to crush everything across a wide area and reduce the battlefield to rubble in just moments. During his confrontation with Tomura Shigaraki, Re-Destro fully displayed his terrifying might. Using only 2 fingers, he crushed Tomura's left arm and hurled him away, sending him crashing through multiple buildings in succession. Re-Destro's speed, strength, and brutality pushed even the leader of the League of Villains to the brink. However, the most extreme moment did not lie in his power, but in the decision he made after his defeat. Re-Destro did not kneel out of fear, but out of strategy. Recognizing the overwhelming potential of Tomura, he willingly relinquished leadership, allied with the League of Villains, and in doing so formed the Paranormal Liberation Front, one of the most dangerous forces ever to appear in My Hero Academia. Beyond raw power, Re-Destro also possesses incredible stamina, speed, and durability. He survived a fall from the top of a tower, endured devastating attacks during his confrontation with Tomura, and remained conscious even after his chest was pierced. After his battle with Tomura, Re-Destro lost both legs and was forced to rely on prosthetic limbs. This partially limited his ability to accumulate stress, but not enough to make him weak. Even in a reduced state, Re-Destro remains a monster capable of confronting top-level heroes and spreading large-scale destruction. Twice, whose real name is Jin Bubai Gawara, was once regarded as little more than comic relief within the League of Villains. However, behind his disheveled appearance and constant jokes lay one of the most dangerous threats ever to appear in My Hero Academia. Not because of physical strength, but because his quirk held the potential to destroy an entire nation. His quirk double allows Twice to create duplicates of himself or of others. Each clone possesses the same memories, personality, and abilities as the original. At first, he was limited by the fear of no longer knowing which one was the real Twice, causing his ability to be restricted to only a few clones. But after the Meta Liberation Army incident, when Twice overcame the greatest psychological trauma of his life, this quirk evolved into a true nightmare. Twice's most dangerous tactic is creating copies of himself and having those copies continue to duplicate themselves. This process repeats endlessly, producing thousands of Twices in mere seconds. This technique is known as Sad Man's Parade, and once his mental state stabilized further, it evolved into Sad Man's Death Parade, a chaotic army that is nearly impossible to control. Even Hawks acknowledged Twice as Shigaraki's most dangerous subordinate, forcing him to act directly during the Paranormal Liberation War to prevent the rise of the clone army. While Twice was neither the strongest nor the most ambitious, once Sad Man's Death Parade reached completion, the balance of war would collapse from the very first moment. This is the greatest tragedy of Twice. He was not an evil man, but someone who longed to be accepted and fought with everything he had for those he considered family. Yet it was the overwhelming power born from that loyalty that turned him into a threat the world could not allow to exist and ultimately had to eliminate. Overhaul. Overhaul, also known as Kai Chisaki, is the man who pulled the Yakuza back from the brink of collapse and restored them as a terrifying underground force. His quirk Overhaul allows him to disassemble and reconstruct anything he touches, from human bodies to massive structures. In an instant, this power of destruction and reconstruction grants him near absolute control over matter, turning the surrounding environment into a tool that serves his own interests. With a single touch, even with just one finger, Overhaul can instantly disassemble an opponent. At the same time, that very ability ability allows him to reconstruct his own body to heal any injury, making him nearly impossible to defeat through conventional means. Even more terrifying is Overhaul's ability to fuse with other people, greatly amplifying his combat power beyond human limits. These fusion forms not only increase his striking force, but also make his body twisted, dense, and extremely difficult to damage. However, Overhaul is not a villain who relies solely on his quirk. He possesses extremely fast reflexes and a cold, calculating tactical mind. This is clearly shown when he kills Magni in a single moment and disassembles Mr. Compress's arm as a warning, proving that for Overhaul, anyone who lets their guard down can be eliminated instantly. Beyond that, Overhaul is also a terrifying research genius. In just a few short years, by exploiting Eri's body and understanding her quirk, he created bullets capable of permanently destroying a person's quirk. By comparison, Dr. Shigaraki required decades to bring the Nomu project to its current level. If Overhaul had been given more time, he would not only have surpassed Garaki, but could have overturned Hero Society itself by mass-producing both quirk-erasing bullets and their antidotes, gaining absolute control over a world where quirks are everything. During the raid on the Shie Hasaikai headquarters, Overhaul held off Mirio Tagada solely by manipulating the terrain and launching perfectly precise attacks. Even though Mirio was one of the strongest potential heroes at UA, a single small mistake was enough for Overhaul to end the fight. When pushed into a disadvantage, Overhaul continued to display absolute cruelty by fusing with Shin Nenemoto, significantly increasing his strength and speed. This grotesque form turned Overhaul into an almost unstoppable entity at that moment. Even when facing Deku using One for All at 20%, Overhaul endured and continued applying pressure throughout the battle. His durability allowed him to withstand heavy blows from both Mirio and Deku, attacks that would have been enough to defeat most other heroes. In the end, Overhaul was only defeated when Deku was able to use One for All at 100% with Eri's support on his back. Gigantomachia. Gigantomachia is the pure engine of destruction of the League of Villains and the absolutely loyal bodyguard of All for One. He holds no ideals and no personal ambition, existing instead as a monster born solely to obey and crush everything in his path. The key factor that places Gigantomachia far above ordinary villains is the fact that he possesses as many as 7 different quirks, something that is nearly impossible for a normal human. This combination turns him into a true walking catastrophe. First is endurance, which allows Gigantomachia to convert willpower and spirit directly into nearly limitless physical stamina. Alongside it is Pain Blocker, which completely nullifies the sensation of pain, whether internal or external. Energy Saver allows his body to function on extremely minimal amounts of food, water, and sleep, enabling Gigantomachia to fight continuously for more than 48 hours without exhaustion. In terms of strength and physical form, Fierce Gains makes his muscles unnaturally dense and durable, while Gigantification allows him to increase his body size based on emotion, reaching heights of over 25 meters. Finally, Dog and Mole not only elevate his sense of smell and hearing to superhuman levels, but also grant him sharp claws, spines along his back, and protective eye coverings, making approaching or ambushing him virtually impossible. Thanks to the perfect combination of these 7 quirks, Gigantomachia possesses physical power great enough to carve through a mountainside with a single hand, move at speeds of up to roughly 100 kilometers per hour across any terrain, and endure attacks capable of defeating professional heroes while continuing to advance. However, this absolute power comes at the cost of total dependence. Gigantomachia lacks the ability to think independently and acts solely on his master's orders. He can even be controlled through recorded commands or voice imitation. Yet, when driven by motivation from All for One or Shigaraki, this monster becomes nearly unstoppable, and only an exceptionally intelligent strategy combined with overwhelming destructive force is capable of bringing him down. Dabi. Dabi, or more precisely, Toya Todoroki, is the eldest son of Endeavor and the older brother of Shoto Todoroki. He possesses the quirk Blue Flame, a firepower even more dangerous than his father's Hell Flame, powerful enough to incinerate an entire group of opponents in just a few seconds. Once regarded as Endeavor's greatest hope, Toya was rejected by his own father when his body proved incapable of withstanding the heat of his quirk. After a self-immolation accident that led his entire family to believe he had died, Toya vanished from Hero Society. Years later, he returned under the name Dabi, training in isolation and turning his overwhelming hatred into fuel for blue flames that reach temperatures of around 2,000 degrees Celsius. Dabi's power scales directly with negative emotions, turning every battle into a moving hell. He is capable of controlling firepower on a massive scale, continuously unleashing intense waves of heat or erecting enormous walls of flame to trap and corner his enemies. Rather than relying solely on raw firepower, Dabi also possesses sharp tactical thinking and an eidetic memory. After observing something just once, he He can memorize and reproduce complex movements. This allows Dabi to copy and modify the advanced techniques of Endeavor and Shoto, using them in ways that are far more ruthless and efficient. Although Dabi's body is heavily burned and covered in scars, it remains a dangerous weapon. He has high pain tolerance, remarkable durability, and especially exceptional resistance to cold. Nerve damage from childhood left Dabi barely able to clearly feel pain, which also allows him to use his quirk far beyond limits others could endure, despite his body being destroyed with every passing moment. Dabi's arsenal clearly reflects this recklessness. Fire Punch pushes flame temperature to the extreme in close combat. Hell Spider fires thin streams of fire from his fingertips, burning everything in their path. Prominence Burn concentrates all of his firepower to vaporize a target in an instant. Hellfire Landmine turns the ground itself into a blue flame trap that devours both enemies and the battlefield. And in the final battle, Dabi forces Blue Flame far beyond biological limits, turning his own body into a living bomb with the sole objective of dragging Endeavor down with him. All for One. All for One is the embodiment of absolute domination, a living legend of evil and the eternal enemy of All Might. From the moment he first appeared until the very end of the story, his goal never changed: to steal the quirks of others, accumulate power, and become an existence that cannot be defeated. The quirk that bears his own name allows All for One to steal, grant, and manipulate the quirks of others at will. He does not simply take his opponent's abilities, but combines them to create ultimate moves with catastrophic destructive power. Each attack is a fusion of dozens of quirks, turning All for One into a true living arsenal. Despite being worn down by time and the severe injuries he suffered in the past, All for One still possesses inhuman strength, extraordinary reflexes, and endurance that defies all logic. Through the quirk life force, he extended his lifespan far beyond human limits, continuing to exist after blows that would have killed anyone else. Even as his body decayed, his very presence remained a haunting terror to the entire hero society. During the final war, All for One used the rewind drug to rejuvenate his body, temporarily returning to his prime state. His power was not only restored but became far more terrifying than before. However, the price he paid was that his existence itself began to be erased little by little with every passing second. It was within that brief window that All for One revealed the full extent of his true horror. He generated massive energy spikes from his back and fired devastating beams, unleashed rivet stab in dense barrages of sharp tendrils that pierced and restrained heroes in an instant, and even warped the surrounding space to tear his targets apart. Every assault was completely unpredictable and carried absolute destructive force. In the end, All for One was defeated only when the entire hero society stood together against him. Tomura Shigaraki. Tomura Shigaraki is the symbol of fear for a new generation. Raised by All for One from childhood, he did not grow up with dreams or ideals, but with a single purpose planted directly into his mind: to destroy All Might and bring down the entire hero society that he represented. Over time, Tomura not only became All for One's successor, but gradually surpassed his mentor. He absorbed the malice, power, and knowledge left behind by All for One, while awakening his own pure destructive instincts. As the leader of the Paranormal Liberation Front, Tomura had no need for grand speeches or lofty ideals. His very existence alone was enough to spread fear and plunge hero society into a state of crisis. The quirk decay is the core of Tomura's power. At first, this ability only allowed him to disintegrate objects when all 5 fingers made contact. However, after his awakening and physical modification, decay evolved into uncontrollable waves of destruction that spread outward, devouring everything in their path at terrifying speed. Alongside this, Tomura's physical body was elevated to a level comparable to top-tier heroes, encompassing strength, speed, endurance, and rapid adaptation to incoming attacks, with bodily modifications fully optimized for combat. What truly makes Tomura terrifying is not just his power, but his exponential rate of growth. He continuously turns adversity into a launch platform. From defeating Overhaul to seize resources and control of the criminal underworld, crushing Re-Destro and absorbing the entire Meta Liberation Army empire, to enduring Gigantomachia for over a month, every trial forged Tomura into an entity that transforms every obstacle into a stepping stone toward absolute domination. When total war erupted, Tomura directly confronted nearly the entire force of professional heroes. He drove Endeavor into collapse both physically and mentally. Gran Torino, once a pillar of multiple generations of heroes, was gravely injured to the point of being unable to continue fighting. He took one of Eraserhead's eyes and forced the hero to amputate his own leg. Countless other veteran heroes were pushed to the brink of death just to restrain Tomura for a few brief moments. In the end, Izuku Midoriya was always the one standing before Tomura in the decisive moments. Although he achieved victory, the cost was severe damage to his own body and his limits. This proved that Tomura forced an entire new generation of heroes to surpass their own boundaries simply to survive against him. In the final moments of the battle, Tomura did not perish as a mindless monster. The personality of Tenko Shimura, buried for so long, finally awakened. Tomura accepted his own end, fading away together with decay, leaving behind a devastated world while also opening a chance for Hero Society to begin anew. His ending was not a complete triumph of justice, but a sorrowful reminder of a child once abandoned by the world who chose destruction as the only path to survive. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos.